Hi there, I'm Lisa Taylor, and welcome to Choose to Be You. If you are a member of our community, you know very well that I am a firm believer in the fact that we need to courageously choose to be who God made us to be. We need to courageously step into that authentic place of our true being. So many people in the world are struggling with being happy, feeling fulfilled, finding life purpose. And science shows that it comes down to, do you really know who you are? Do you really know what you want? Well, over my life, I have struggled mightily with these questions, as we all do. And I've come up with 3 simple steps to get to this level of clarity. Getting clear about who you are and what you want, being consistent in a daily practice that helps you get to that clarity, and then courageously going out and contributing your true authentic self to the world, because that's what's needed. The world has need of you being you. Well, recently I did a 5-hour live event and I invited 9 global thought leaders to the table to talk about this very subject, choose to be you, and courageously choosing to be who God made us to be. So I welcome you to listen to these interviews. I'm bringing them to you one by one. So let's now begin with the next introduction.
So I'm going to go ahead and get started and let you know that our first guest is a producer, entrepreneur, and best-selling author. She has over 30 years experience in the industry of human potential and personal development, and has supported thousands of women and families in recovery and personal transformation. She's the co-founder of Think and Grow Sober, and also of Kitchen Hamilton Productions, which is a production company that creates international positive media programming, and the national cable television series, The World's Greatest Motivators. Please join me in welcoming our first guest to the studio, Julie Jones Hamilton. Julie. And Julie, I know, since it looks like we're having just a little moment here, Julie, I know from another show that I did called The Intuition Chronicles, where Julie was, Rhonda, are you getting Julie to come into the studio with me? Rhonda's our tech person, and I'm going to be calling on Rhonda. Do we have Julie? I know Julie's here because I saw her earlier. Why don't I do this? Why don't I just vamp? Because this is one of my favorite subjects, choose to be you. And I know, and you saw this in the video on the sign up page, I know for a fact that if you can see who you are, you can be who you are. And the process that I have gone through to get to know myself, it's kind of a hard-won process. I think we all go through that hard-won process, right? And there was a time in my life when this was right out of college, and I was working as a secretary. And I really, that wasn't a job for me. Though I tried my best, it really wasn't, it really wasn't my bailiwick. So I was very much in the practice of praying and meditating and aligning my thought with my true self every day. And I was in the practice of doing that. So I knew I would recognize when an activity didn't really align with me. And what would happen is I would notice that things just weren't syncing up with who I am. So I knew when I was in this job that it just wasn't me. And I felt like there was so much more to my life than this particular job that I was doing. And I one day went out at lunch kind of in tears and just really distraught and thinking there's got to be more to life than this. And I went out and I sat by this fountain. Oh, I should tell you, leading up to that, I actually did call a spiritual practitioner to try to help me kind of work through this. And the practitioner said, I don't want you to lift a pencil unless you can do it with love. So I would sit there at my desk, like literally sit there at my desk and do nothing. And then the boss would walk by and wonder what the heck I was doing. And it was like, unless I could do it with love, I wasn't going to lift a pencil. I'm sure she was figuring there was something else going on. So that was my practice. And eventually I got to the point where this job just so was not in my wheelhouse. It was so not aligning with me that I just couldn't do it anymore. That's when I went out at lunch in tears, sat down by this fountain, and I sat there and I honestly just reached out to the universe and just said, I want to be utilized. I want to be used fully. Please allow me to do whatever it is you would have me do. And, you know, honestly, at that point, I didn't care if I swept floors at McDonald's. I would have done anything that I was able to do in service to the higher good, the greater good. And I said, whatever answer you give me right now, I will listen and I will do it. So I actually heard a voice so loudly that I turned around thinking there was somebody behind me. And the voice said, you'll be in Boston for a while. I'd been living in Boston at the time. And I thought, well, what, that's not an answer. What is that? That doesn't tell me what I'm supposed to do. What is that? And then I stopped myself and I said, no, wait a second. You said you would take whatever answer you got. That's the answer you got. So you need to trust it and you need to go forward. And I got up from where I was sitting and I walked about 20 paces. And an old boss of mine came out of nowhere from out of this building and said, hey, Lisa, how's it going? And I said, oh, you know, interesting you should ask, John. I just got a really clear sense I'm going to be in Boston for a while, because he knew I'd been struggling and kind of wondering what to do. He said, I'm so glad to hear you say that. Come upstairs. I want to offer you a job. It happened that fast. Now that job, well, actually the story gets better. I go back to my office. I get the phone rings. I get a call from the radio division. I'd been looking into doing kind of radio and television stuff. And the radio division calls and the guy there says, I know you were kind of interested in TV, but this is radio and we have somebody going on vacation. So what do you say you come down and try it out? You know, we'll check you out. You check us out, see if you like it. Hung up the phone. I said, John, I just got a call from radio. They said they want me to fill in. He said, hang on. Later today, they're going to find out that that division is being shut down. So why don't you go ahead and do that? And then, you know, so I got essentially the same job from two different sources within minutes of each other. And this was after me standing up, having the courage to walk away from or walk out at lunch from this job that really didn't line up with me. And then I was open to hearing the next step, the next direction. There's this really cool poem that I memorized way back when. It was probably around the same time. I used to memorize poems when I'd go running around the Charles River. And there's this one poem, and it's by this woman, Phyllis Stoddard. And I don't know if it has a title, but it's standing before unknown waters with trembling heart. It isn't thus that the waters part and you step. No, you step and the waters part. And I absolutely love that because it forces us to do two things. Act, take an action towards what we want, towards what is in alignment with us, right? As we step, the waters part. And it forces us to trust. So trusting that voice that I heard, trusting that the answer that I got was actually an answer, even though it didn't make complete sense to me, it was the thing that let me get up from where I was, walk 20 steps, and then hear the next step. So it's kind of like GPS. Like when you put in your next destination, all you need is the next turn. You don't need the whole thing. You just need, I need to go here and stop. I need to go here and turn left or turn right. You just need that one next step. So that's just kind of one little example. And there've been so many. Julie's back. Well, great. I hear Julie's back. There've been so many examples of that. It's just to kind of wrap up my story. So this show, it's interesting that we got to share that story. This show is all about knowing who you are so clearly that your life aligns with it, and what does it take to make that happen along the way. So please let's welcome Julie to the studio. I hear she's back. Yes, there you are. Yay, technology, don't you love it?
I
Julie!
do. I was in the green room.
Yeah.
And just humming and kind of
What
singing.
happened?
And it was a break room thing. I was waiting for my cue and I didn't know I was supposed to push a button.
Oh, well, good. So that's something that I'm sure Rhonda will figure out, and she'll let the next guest know.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
Button.
So when the buttons that just said, all of a sudden it popped up, you're going to be kicked out of the green room in 56 seconds. And then I pushed the button and called Rhonda. Hello, Rhonda. And she goes, yeah, okay. Anyway, we're here, Lisa.
Well, I'm so you gave me a chance to tell my story. So it's all good.
See how this works?
I know,
Yeah,
right?
well, I want to
How
thank
are
you so
you?
much. Thank you. I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you for allowing me to be here with all these awesome people and to share one of my favorite topics. And
It
I'm
is
just
just
really happy to be here.
such a pleasure to see you.
Oh,
So in this process, I actually have a couple of very specific questions and we can chat,
okay.
but
Yeah,
I know you've done a lot of work in sort of the recovery arena, 30 years worth of work. Is there something that you've noticed? Like, is there something you've noticed in people that is that pivot point when they decide I'm ready to be me and not be the addiction?
Or I'm ready to be me and not be what everything else is telling me to be.
Yeah. Like, have you noticed some kind of
Well,
similarity with among people that you can kind of identify that thing?
sometimes, usually, there's a couple events that'll happen for us to really transform or to change. One of it could be a complete some type of a disaster or some type of a tremendous pain or some type of another one could be accidental, just boom, like a white light, wow, I don't want to be that, or I want to be this, or I'm already this. And however, it's kind of unique. It's unique to everyone's own journey. But
Yeah.
what I have, in the recovery field, um, there's a strong desire to be um, to be themselves, and but not knowing how. So
Right.
so addiction or whatever one would use to cope as a coping mechanism could be drugs or alcohol, or it could be addicted to a myriad of things. Is removing the focus from what I like to say, that somehow we get this notion that there's something wrong with us,
Right.
that we need fixing, that there's something that I need to do or something I need to be in order to receive my joy or my happiness or my piece of the pie on this planet. And sometimes we get this false premise that I got to do something, or be someone else.
I have to correct something. I have to change something about myself rather than seeing who they actually are. Is that?
It's almost like I'm broken.
Oh, okay.
There's something about me that isn't right. I don't fit in here.
Yeah.
We're receiving mixed internal signals, like I'm not worthy enough, or I'm not good enough, or they do that. It's comparison is what it is. And we compare what's going on outside of us. And if they knew me, if they really knew me, they may not think highly of me, or I may not be. And the only reason why I know, one of the reasons why I was in addiction early in my life and came into recovery, and have spent the majority of my life in recovery and supporting others. And I know for me, part of that coping was I was a people pleaser and I was
Yeah.
an approval seeker. And I talk a lot about that. The truth is that there's no one else on this planet like me. I'm the only one. I'm the only Julie, with my own likes and my preferences and my tastes, and same with you. You're the only one, unique to you, with your own likes and your own dislikes and your own preferences. And I mean, you're the only you in your universe, in the universe. I'm the only me. And we go against our nature when we try and pretend to be something, or to do something, or be someone else or something else.
Were you aware when you were in addiction, were you aware that you were doing that? Or was that something that was very far away from your consciousness?
It's not that it was far away. I felt uncomfortable.
Okay. So what was it that had you kind of tipped to the other side, where you were ready to let go of substances and really start to examine and get comfortable with feeling settled in yourself?
It's a journey.
Yeah.
It was a journey. I had to uncover and discover a lot about me, and giving myself permission to like the things that I like, to wear the clothes that as I mentioned, I had to pull back that seeking approval from other people.
Right.
And looking on outside places to feel good in my inside.
Is there a specific process that you've taken people through when they're coming out and it's sort of starting that recovery program?
Yes, there is.
Are there?
Funny you should ask.
Funny, I should ask.
Yes,
I
there
wondered
is a
about
process.
that.
Yes, there is. First of all, I have them write down, and I've done this myself, all the things that I love in life and all the things that I like and love about myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes the list can be very small and short but I have to write 50 things. You cannot get off the hook.
I tell people 100.
Yeah, very good.
You're nice.
Boy, aren't you lenient?
You're nice.
Aren't you? Aren't I lenient? You know, this taskmaster.
Softy.
Yeah. But, you know, in the beginning, I mean, it's all you can do to hold 10.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, it's just a little bit of going through that journey into uncovering. And then to find a space. For instance, this is how there is no relationship of greater importance than to achieve the relationship between me and in my physical body right here, right now, and that higher self, that soul, that source from which I came. Okay, from which I come, from which you come. And it's only if I tend to that relationship, first and foremost, will I then and only then have the stable footing to proceed into other relationships.
So here's my question, because that I love the sounds of that and I totally get that. But what if I don't know what that source is? What if I have no concept of that?
All right.
Right?
You get to choose and develop it. You get to create your own. It isn't any, I mean, I borrowed my mentors until I decided how I could create my own. And I'm going to give an example, if I may, about how I share what mine is.
Yeah.
It's a feeling. There was times when all I wanted was to be wrapped up in arms. So I would visualize myself as a child with some grandfather, fatherly, strong arms on a rocking chair on a porch. And I would crawl up into those arms and I would visualize, creative visualization. I would visualize myself being rocked and comfort and how that felt. And I would breathe into that and relax. That was a beginner. And anytime I would feel anxiety or fret or fume, I would relax into those arms in my mind's eye and know, like a pat, hey, I've got you. Like the grandfather of the universe was rocking.
I feel so much better just listening to you say that. It's like you're going to make me cry.
I know, right? And then as I began to go inward, so that as if I always felt those arms around me, then I had the visualization, okay, now maybe you can catch this feeling. I see myself on a shoreline and I'm overlooking the horizon of an ocean. And it's kind of sunset and it's a little brisk. And I'm wrapped in a cashmere blanket. So that's really warm. And I can feel the mist of the ocean. I can smell it and I can hear the seagulls and the waves. And next to me is a golden retriever.
Oh.
And that golden retriever, when I look down at it, it looks back up at me. And I look down at it. And when I look down at it, I can feel its tail in the back hitting me. Thump, 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 thump. You know how they wag their tail? And I kind of lean into this golden retriever and that unconditional love from that golden retriever. Doesn't matter. You can't understand what I'm saying. Just looking at that golden retriever, feeling the ocean and nature and the beauty, warm in the cashmere blanket. That feeling of total and unconditional love is the feeling tone I feel with my higher power.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that. Do you know the story, my story of the dog on the beach?
No.
Okay, I don't want to take your time because I really would rather have you hear use it. I was in a relationship, very far apart, had come out of a codependent one, was building new habits so I wouldn't call when I needed him. So I felt very distraught. I went to a beach where I love to go and kind of align with higher power, and was just crying out, sobbing. And I'm looking at seagulls and stuff. The next thing I know, this dog comes out of nowhere and puts his head under my hand and walks with me. And I'm like petting the dog and crying and feeling better, right? And then I get distracted by a seagull and kind of look up and look back, and the dog is gone. The dog is gone. Like, I look up the beach, I look down the beach, there's no dog. I'm not kidding. This happened. It was like, and I'm getting chills just thinking about it. It was like the answer to what I absolutely, so when you say that, animals represent that unconditional love, uncritical, no judgment, no, just full acceptance, and just that pure sense of love. So I love that story and that image that you shared. It's so powerful.
It's a frequency and it's an energy. And the more that we are authentic, the more that we give ourselves permission and we share our true colors, our true self with others, it's a gift. We give them permission so that they can be authentic and share themselves as well. And in my view, I believe there's no greater gift to give in the world to others than the purity of yourself, your laughter, whatever your humor is, whatever color, whatever you like, whatever you eat, whatever. I'm always asking my kids, what do you prefer? What would you love to see in that? What would you love to see happen? Because when we're in alignment with our authentic self, it is so much easier to make decisions because we're not up in our head manipulating what other people think about us or what we're doing or what we're wearing or how we're behaving. We can just be ourselves. And oh, by the way, there is one main thing that I would love your listeners, if there's anything that else that they can take away of what I'm sharing, there's one thing I'd love for them to hear. And that's, it is none of our business what other people think or say about us. It is not our business. That's their business.
Yeah.
Our business is what do we think about ourselves and what do we say to ourselves?
Yeah. And that piece of self-talk and having,
that's the voice, you said the internal judgment. And one other thing, sorry.
That's okay.
One other thing. When we listen to that internal voice of critical self-judgment, it's very loud and it's very negative and it speaks in the can'ts and you can't and you shouldn't and you wouldn't and what are you doing? It's critical. And we listen to that more often than we do the one that's saying, hey, you've got this. Hey, you're cool. Yeah, do this, do that. How can I listen? You mentioned in the beginning, I was listening to you share the story about this voice you heard, and then you heard it, and you took that step, and then you heard, and you took the other. How do you differentiate between that voice? Yeah. Well, the critical self-judgment voice is very loud, and it can come from an old relationship or a voice that a well-meaning teacher or parent or somebody teaching us, but it's loud and it's critical. Don't do that. No. It's our ability to respond to that voice that becomes our responsibility. This is our world. Yeah. We must learn to respond. And how do we respond to it? We listen to it, we notice it, but there's a greater truth. We learn to listen to that still small voice that is positive. It speaks in very clear sentences. It's the first voice we hear, but we've heard it so many times that we ignore it. Yeah. And here's how it works. I listen to it. It says, do this. And I get up, you know what? I'm going to go do this. And then someone comes along, hey, no, why don't we do that? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to do this. No, come on, let's do that. All right. I go and do that. And then boom, something happens. And I say, boy, I knew.
Yeah, we know. We hear that.
Know that.
You said something that I love. You said that this was a few things ago. You said that when we really know ourselves and are aligned with our sense of self, it makes decisions easier. And it's kind of what you're saying now. Like when you hear that voice and you're tuned into it and you hear it, it makes the decision easier when the friend says, hey, let's go do this. Like, nope, because I'm going to trust what I heard. And I'm going to be obedient to that in a sense, and be sort of honor that in myself and not sort of honor somebody else's choice.
Now the journey is building the trust.
Yeah.
My son and I were just talking about this morning. You know, he was saying, yeah, but what if I do this? And I said, you will trust yourself.
Yeah.
You will know if
Well,
someone
is it trusting yourself? Like, and this is where we kind of have to make the differentiation, I think.
Okay, now you're
Trusting
going
yourself
even,
or trusting your higher self, like trusting that thing
well,
that is larger than you are, that you're kind of plugging into, right? That you're the reflection
well,
of.
you know, some of us are afraid of that. So,
Yeah.
however, my best self got me into rehab.
Yeah.
So I needed to go somewhere else. I needed to go higher.
Yeah.
But and it's all inside of us. This is an inside job.
Right.
This is an
Right.
inside out world. So
Yeah.
I needed to go higher. Now that voice, the differentiation of the voice that we just are speaking about, that's my surface logical mind speaking. Now, because we have two sides of our nature, our invisible side of our nature and our human side of our nature, it's learning to trust the invisible side of our nature that's connected to my higher self, which is connected to source,
Right.
a higher voice.
Some would
It's
call it your
truly,
spirituality or
it's
your
our
not
spirit,
in
it's
a
our
religious sense, but
soul.
just the non-material, the
It's a
non-physical.
fact that I didn't make myself. We're
Yeah.
breathing, folks.
Yeah.
We're all here. What happened? How did we get here? This is a very divine, orderly universe that works divine and orderly ways, and so do we when we align ourselves up to this divinity. And we're the top of the food chain. We are made in the likeness and image. We are resourced and fortified with all the power and all the way to tap in, but we keep ourselves from tapping in because of that critical thinking and those voices. So what the practices are is to ask yourself questions. Wait a minute. What do I really want to do?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. What do I really like? Wait a minute. And then listen to that voice, that cheerleading voice that's with you all the time, that's got your back. The legions of angels surround you if you just call on them. They're waiting to be called on. The higher self is waiting. All of providence is set up to support you. We live in an abundant universe that's made for you and made for me. It is our nature to expand in good and great and growth. So when we understand that there's nothing wrong with us, we're not broken. We have our own gifts, art, and talents, and we give ourselves permission to live authentically, to choose to be you.
Exactly.
And we can't be anyone else.
And unfortunately, I have to choose to say we're coming to the end of our particular time together. So I know that you wanted to offer our viewers a special gift. So can you tell us about that?
Yes.
And I know Rhonda's going to put the link in the chat.
Okay, so great. I am an executive producer with my partner, Lynn Kitchen, of World's Greatest Motivators. It's a television series. And we have some of the fabulous personal development masters, Mary Morrissey, Bob Proctor, Les Brown, John Assaraf, Brian Tracy, have all been on the stage and have all had their own episode. And they have a plethora of free gifts. And go to worldsgreatestmotivators.com and check it out. You can go to Brian Tracy, you can check out Mary Morrissey, any of them, and you can get into their free gifts. They're
awesome. I didn't know you had that. I'm going to go check that out.
It's like
you've curated it all for me, and I can go pick and choose.
Yes, you can.
That's awesome.
Choose. It's like a buffet. Life is like a banquet. Pick what you want.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for being here. And I'm sorry about the technical issues, but you more than made up for it in the short time that we had. And I so appreciate your being here.
This information is a pure blessing, and blessings to all the panel who are on. It's so great to be in this energy.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
Bye for now.
Thank you so much for joining us. I am Lisa Taylor, and this is Choose to Be You. We are bringing you this series of interviews that we did during a live event when I invited 9 global thought leaders to the table to talk about this subject. So please do watch for the other ones in the series. They are posted here on YouTube and you can watch them all. Be in touch with me at lisataylorcs.com if you would like to know more. And I look forward to your being a member of this community. We are mighty and we are strong and we are changing the world. If you can see who you can be who you are. and the world has need of you being authentically who you are meant to be. So much love to you, and do join us next time. Thanks for being here.